You're good to turn on your mic.
This is American Sign Language. It's a language that's not spoken, so I'm translating with my voice. But imagine if I were here, signing but not speaking. The majority of you probably wouldn't understand what I'm saying. Now, imagine if the roles were reversed, and you are a person who communicates only using American Sign Language. You would probably feel excluded. But what if there was a way to make you feel included? That one simple way is to learn a little bit of sign language. Hello, my name is Megan Levine, and today I'll be sharing the importance of inclusion, no matter what someone's situation is in life. Over the course of the past semester, I learned American Sign Language, or at least as much of it as I could. At first, I thought that I would simply be learning a language, but by the end, I realized that I'd learned more about the deaf culture, communication, and inclusion that I hadn't even realized. It's important to note that a lot of people within the deaf community use some form of sign language to communicate. For many, it's their first and only form of communication. For some, they use sign language, read lips, and use some form of a spoken language. Upon someone's first exposure to American Sign Language, they may believe that English and sign language are closely related to one another. But once you dive a little deeper into it, you'll realize that they are in fact completely different from one another. Yes, the most obvious difference is that English is spoken and American Sign Language is not. But the differences do extend further than that. American Sign Language has its own grammatical structure, forms of expression, and nuances that English simply doesn't have. Sign language is incredibly important to those who use it, and it's a huge part of the deaf culture. Just like hearing cultures, the deaf culture has its own language, beliefs, and values, and sign language is an essential part of it that's been protected for hundreds of years. There was once a time when sign language was used in everyday life in the hearing world as well, when spoken language and sign language were used simultaneously. For instance, back in the 1700s in Martha's Vineyard, there was a community who was comprised of both deaf and hearing people. This was where true inclusion could be found between both of these worlds. There were meetings that were held in both ASL and English, and schools were taught in spoken language and sign language, so that regardless of whether you were part of the hearing or deaf community, you spoke one and the same and could understand either. However, this level of inclusion has not been upheld to this day, and not only do communication barriers still exist among those who are hearing and those who are deaf, but they exist within the hearing community itself. There are individuals who for some reason or another aren't able to fully express themselves using spoken language. This is where, in recent years, we see the introduction of technology. This technology enables people to express themselves and their thoughts and feelings to others, which is crucial to humanity as a whole. Yes, it's widely known that the majority of the people in the world use spoken language to communicate. But as some of you may know, or as I've hopefully shown you, it's not the only way to communicate. The most prevalent form of technology that's used in today's world is called augmentative and alternative communication. These communication technologies can range from something as simple as a picture board to something as complex as a speech-generating device. Many people may be surprised or curious when they first see augmentative and alternative communication being used, and that's totally okay. It's important to note that people think and learn and communicate in a variety of different ways. And if they need to use accommodations, they need accommodations. As people, we're working to constantly strive to accept others' differences, whether they lie in how they communicate or in other parts of life. We're working on acknowledging these differences, but then moving on with our lives and seeing that these differences don't define who a person is. They're just the same person who communicates in a little bit of a different way. This is one of the first steps to inclusion, and learning to be a more inclusive person starts with just that, accepting others' differences. Now, the concept of inclusion is quite broad, and it means so many different things to so many people. Thinking about the means required to reach a fully inclusive world can be daunting, but inclusion doesn't have to consist of large, grand actions. Inclusion can simply be things that we implement in our daily lives, little by little, here and there. So, yes, we all know the stereotypical form of inclusion, inviting someone to sit with you at lunch. But inclusion extends so much further than that. Inclusion is engaging with others who you might not otherwise engage with. It's getting to know people for who they really are. Inclusion is inviting someone to participate in your everyday activities when they might not otherwise participate in your everyday activities. But most importantly, inclusion is learning to accept others for who they are, not for who you want them to be or for who you expect them to be. I believe that Pablo Picasso put it perfectly. He once said, "There is only one way to look at things until someone shows us how to look at them with different eyes." So go out and look at life from a different perspective. See how you can make a difference in someone's life, no matter how big or how small, because I guarantee you that no matter what action you take to include others, even if it's the smallest action, you can absolutely change someone's life forever. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.